Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaya Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaya Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karne Vishunyam Devaha Bhadram Pashi Makshabhir Yajatraha Thirairangai Shushtvagum Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitai Yadayuhu Swastina Indro Vruddhashavaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastina Takshyo Arishtanemihi Swastino Brahaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yatva Munihi Gacchati Bhuta Yonim. Yatva is Nyatva. Come on, already this far, having understood. Yatva Munihi Gacchati Bhuta Yonim. And we saw what kind of Muni. One who is able to see that although he may be doing jhanam on a form of Saguna Brahman, he recognizes that I am actually focusing on that one Advitiya Brahman which I am. Therefore, the jhanam is on myself. And he gets, he gains Bhuta Yoni, Sarvasya Yoni, Sarvabhutanam Yoni. The very cause of everything he reaches, he goes to. Literally, he goes to. But his understanding already is one step ahead of that. You will often hear, in order to understand this, the sense that there is one universal consciousness, like there is the ocean. And in that ocean, there are waves which are formed, which arise from the ocean, sustained by the ocean, and which merge back into the ocean. And you'll often hear, become one with the ocean, with that Paramatma. But that Paramatma we've been looking at carefully and saying there can be only one. There is no Jiva which merges into Paramatma. What is a Jiva? Every Devata is a Jiva. Every Manushya form is a Jiva. Every insect is a Jiva. Every animal is a Jiva. Every tree and plant is a Jiva. Everything else which has only Sthula Sharira, we don't call it Jiva. One that has an appropriate Sukshma Sharira is called the jiva. Many times I've heard people who kill other jivas for food justified by saying they are not jivas. Only Manushya is jiva. Manushya is jiva, Deva is jiva, animals are jiva, plants are jiva, everything is jiva. Because they have the upadhi of Sukshma Sharira. This Sukshma Sharira upadhi, even if you have only Sthula Sharira as an upadhi, you still get an individuality. But there is no I notion, because there is no Sukshma Sharira. When the Sthula Sharira also has a Sukshma Sharira as another upadhi, then there is I, the sense of an individuality, ahankara. When you say that this jiva with the Sukshma Sharira merges with the superconsciousness, the wave merges with the ocean, that is one level of understanding. Nothing wrong with it per se. But this Munihi has taken one more step. He has recognized that the wave has a form, has a date of birth, has a date of death. The wave also has notions. I am a small wave. I'm adding that, although the wave doesn't have Sukshma Sharira. If it had a Sukshma, that's what it would say. Ocean is vast, never ending. I come from the ocean. I'm sustained by the ocean. I merge back into the ocean. But when that last step is taken, when that wave which we are giving a Sukshma Sharira to recognizes that I, the wave, and the ocean are not separate, then there's no merging. Why they're not separate? Because I am water, ocean is water. Therefore, I and ocean are non-different. Now you understand why we use words like Jiva and Ishvara are non-different, they are non-separate. At the level of Upadhi, they are separate. But the ability to finely distinguish between these two is available for humans. Between where the difference comes, the difference, apparent difference comes from the Upadhi. In reality, there is no difference. Therefore, we use words like Ishvara, although it looks different from I, Jiva, they're really the same. So you use words like non-separate, in essence the same. The essence being Brahman. All the upadhis being Vidya. They are not there. There is only one Drik, the Sakshi. Sakshin is the word. Sakshi. So he is a Samasta Sakshin, Samasakshinam. Munihi Gachati. If he is that one Brahman, then every form of Jiva and the form of Jiva that I have taken in this Janma are non-separate. Therefore, having gone through all these, having first talked about Nirguna Brahman, the characteristics of a Nirguna Brahman. The Atyashrami, the one who has crossed all the ashramas. The Ashrami is the Vidvat Sannyasi, not necessarily wearing orange robes, but Vidvat. That sannyasi, having understood the nature of Brahman, having understood that despite the fact that I understand the nature of Brahman, but all the words I use for Brahman are negative words. Not this, not this, not this. Therefore, for me to do dhyanam, I need to latch on to a form. So while he does dhyanam on a form, he gains knowledge of the self. That's why I said dhyatva is jnatva. And having gained that knowledge, he is not only the same as Sarva Bhuta Yoni. He is not only one who has gone past darkness and light, tamasa parasta. Here you have to understand that light that we are talking about, light of knowledge, as opposed to ignorance. I would say the light of ignorance and the light of knowledge. What makes ignorance possible? What makes light possible? That light. By which you can perceive, recognize both darkness and light. That light. Swayambhuhu. For which you don't need another light to understand. Once he reaches that kind of state, every devata which are all only forms, all within the Jagat, including Brahmaji himself, who is now telling Arshavidyalaya. What is he saying? Sab Brahma. Arshavidyalaya, once he understands, he is Brahmaji. He is every devata. Sab Brahma. Can you put on read that verses? Sab Brahma.
Sab Brahma.
Sat Shivaha.
Shivaha.
Tendraha.
Tendraha.
Oksharaha.
Chokraha.
Paramaha.
Paramaha.
Parat.
Varat.
Saeva Vishnuhu.
Saeva Vishnuhu.
Sapranaha.
Sapranaha.
Sakalognihi.
Sakalognihi.
Sachandrama.
Chandrama.
Saeva Sarvam.
Saeva Sarvam.
Yadbhutam Yaccha Bhavyam.
Yadbhutam Yaccha Bhavyam.
Sanatanam.
Sanatanam.
Jnatvatam.
Jnatvatam.
Mrityumatyeti.
Mrityumatyeti.
Nanya Pantha Vimuktaye.
Pantha Vimuktaye.
Sarvabhutasthamaatmanam.
Sarvabhutasthamaatmanam.
Sarvabhutani Chatmani.
Sarvabhutani Chatmani.
Sampashyan Brahma Paramam.
Sampashyan Brahma Paramam.
Yati Nanyena Hetuna.
Yati Nanyena Hetuna.
Sound familiar, no? Sarvabhutastam Sarvabhutani Atmani. Atmani. Brahmaji tells Arshavidyalaya that Munihi is Brahma. Because he is Sarvabhuta Yoni. He is Sarvasya Sakshi. Even Brahmaji is Anityam. Brahmaji, for each kalpa there is a new Brahmaji. And here we are talking about the Brahman, which is not bound by time, which cannot be bound by time. I, Brahman, from which the Prathamaja, which is Brahmaji, arises, the firstborn. And he is there sitting and giving Upadesha to the Shishya. So you are now the Shishya, he is telling Arshavidyalaya, and when you go through all this, Shraddha, Brahma, Dhyana Yoga, Avihi, na karmana, na prajaya dhani, na tyagi naive, ātmatattva manashu. All that he tells them. When you do that, you recognize in you every form of Devata, including Brahma. We talk of the Trinity, Brahma, Brahmaji, Vishnu and Shiva. And we assign them roles. The creator, the sustainer and the destroyer. But they are represented in the same Murti. There is only one Brahman. We assign different roles. Because the samarthyam that we've been talking about, trying to understand, is the samarthyam of Purusha and Prakriti to create, sustain, and have the whole Jagat merge back into it. That samarthyam we divide into three. I don't know how in the Christian thing they divide. Do you see that they also have a Trinity? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Sometimes I feel there's an element of suspicion that every so-called Guru, Sadguru, has somewhere somehow studied this knowledge with a Guru and understood it. Somewhere when passing on that Upadesha, either they did not follow the methodology or the Shishyas were not ready. And then you have multiple interpretations. For all you know, this Father and Son and the Holy Ghost may be a distortion of the same. So all these three are roles assigned. We have earlier said that every Devata is a specialist in his or her domain. They've been allotted a certain portfolio to take care of this. And a form. So this Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva, here it talks about all three. Sa Brahma, Sa Shiva, Sa Eva Vishnu. Because here, all of these are within time. You cannot use that idea. You have to use various words to express the idea, to understand the idea. That's the methodology of the Shastra. So anything which is within the framework of time and space has to be mithya. So you will say things like Trikalatita. Meaning Trikala Atita. Transcends Kala. And all of these various devatas on whom we write all the Puranas, various rishis have written various Puranas, building stories around them, giving them enormous power. Every devata is also a jiva. Every manushya is a jiva. Every animal, insect, plant is a jiva. Devatas are exalted jivas. They have more power, more knowledge in specific domains. Therefore, you can pray to them. Animals are jivas, although they have sukshma sharira and therefore they are jivas, cannot question. Why am I like this? Why is somebody else like this? What makes the difference? Devas don't think. They're already in a space where they experience predominantly sukha. Whether they are in Indraloka, Swargaloka, or whichever loka. Therefore, the argument is there is no incentive for them to question and think. Manushya, although devatas are exalted beings, exalted jivas, it is the manushya who questions. And therefore seeks answers. He is the one who does pariksha loka, pariksha of loka. Every devata, every manushya, every plant, trees, animals, and non-sentient entities are non-separate from the Bhuta Yoni. So he says, you are Bhuta Yoni. That is a Sat, Brahma, Sa Shivaha, Sa Eva Vishnuhu. You notice something interesting here. Up to now, what linga has been used? Look at the previous verses. Achintyam, Abhyaktam, Anantarupam. All of these have been told to us in neuter gender. That Brahman is been shown in various texts earlier, various verses earlier, as being neuter. Napunsakalinga. Suddenly is changed. Saha. Masculine gender, Pullinga. Because when you have reached that stage of understanding, how can there be any gender? There is no gender. Gender is also an attribute for a form. And for that you need upadhi. And what we've been trying to do all this time here is to separate the upadhi from the real thing. Therefore, sa Brahma, sa Shiva, sa Vishnu, sa Eva Vishnu. The same thing is the same. He is everything, creator, sustainer, and destroyer. He doesn't become. He recognizes the I as being all of them. Taha Indra happy. He is the Natha of Indraloka. But he is also not Parmeshwara. We saw Parmeshwara, one who doesn't have an Ishvara. Indra also has an Ishvara. He has a Guru. All these forms he's talking about, all jivas are him. Because he is Akshara. Naksharati. What is Shara? That which is contained by time. That which is born and that which is destroyed in time. Including Brahmaji. Born when new Kalpa is born. Resolved back when the Kalpa is finished. So in that sense, every Devata is Anitya. Mithya. But that Munihi, that Atyashrami, who has understood Jnatva, we will say later also, Mrityamatiyati, is Aksharaha. Because there is no time. There is no space. Without the presence of that Brahman, who the Muni recognizes himself, or herself, or itself, is not within time frame. Time itself, doesn't exist if you think about it carefully. Space doesn't exist. Not on its own. Time for us is now. And then there's a past and future. If we analyze now, is it today, or this hour, or this minute, or this second, or this nanosecond? We are talking about an interval. Now is dimensionless. Therefore, now doesn't exist. Without any dimension, now doesn't exist. We keep splitting it, saying nanosecond, nanosecond, whatever other second. Somewhere we'll end up saying now is that which does not have an interval. If now doesn't exist, what is past? Yesterday is now. And what is future? Tomorrow is now. Now itself doesn't exist. There's no basis. Same thing you can see in space. We recognize a three-dimensional space. The three-dimensional space is said to be a combination of a number of two-dimensional planes. We get a three-dimensional object. And the two-dimensional plane is a combination of number of one-dimensional lines. And the one-dimensional line is nothing but a combination of dimensionless point. So the entire Jagat that we believe exists, is real, is based on non-existent, now non-existent point. Now you know what is Mithya. Everything we know is within that. Time space continuum. If you won't even look at it, it's a scientific temper. You can see it as Mithya. Anything starting Brahmaji downwards, the entire apparent creation is only apparent creation. Exists and yet doesn't exist. That Atyashrami, one who has gone through all the stages, you just tamasa parasta. One who is what makes consciousness of darkness and light is Satyam. Sustains both the ignorance and the knowledge, sustains both darkness and light, all of which are Mithya. Satyam sustains Mithya. So he is Brahma, he is Shiva, he is also Indraha, he is Aksharaha. The second line is full of, first line is all names and forms. Suddenly switches second line to Saha Aksharaha. He is infinite, Purnaha. He is not born at a point in time, does not get destroyed at another point in time. He is Paramaha. How many words can you use for that? It's the same thing, same meaning. Virat. Swayam Rajate. Bhagavan showed himself in the Virat Rupa in the 11th chapter. Vividam Rajate. Virat Swayam Rajate. Saeva Vishnu. Sapranaha. Prana is Hiranyagarbha. Is Virat, is also Hiranyagarbha. Sakalaha. Bhagavan says no in the 11th chapter when Arjuna asks, Bhagavan, I don't understand. Please, after having seen the Vishwarupa, Arjuna says, I don't understand. Please tell me, who are you? Vijñātum iccāmi bhavantam ādyam. After I'd seen the Virat Rupa of Bhagavan, nahi prajanami tava pravrittim. I don't understand your actions. What does Bhagavan say? Bhagavan uvacha kalosmi lokakshayakrit pravriddha. I am Kalaha, in which everything exists, everything is born, everything dies. So here also he says, I am Kalaha. Or Saha Kalaha. Saha Agnihi. the Chandrama. When we're talking about the Trilochanam, we said in various texts that Trilochanani are described as being past, present, and future, as being the three states of being, as the sun, moon, and Agni. Like that, there are various ways these are shown. Here is, if you look at this, also as the creator, sustainer, and destroyer. He's already said Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. He's also said Agni. He's also Chandrama. Chandrama, which is present, which sustains everything. In Ayurveda, all the plants are grown under moonlight. That's supposed to be a sustainer. Prana. Same thing is to repeat by using so many words so that we can understand. And you will see the Samanvaya everywhere. In every text, really is the same thing. It has to say the same thing. Ham Kalaha. Having said all this, when Arjuna asked Bhagavan in the 10th chapter, I want to see your vibhuti. What did Bhagavan tell him? He said, every vibhuti is I. Antate kateshyami divya shatma vibhutayah pradhanyata krushreshta nastyanto vistarashyami. There is no end to my vibhutis. So I'll give you some. Pradhanyata. Here also, Brahmaji, after having told him, Sa Brahma, Sa Vishnu, Sa Shiva, Sa Indra, if he has to say everything, then it will go on and on, there's no end. Because everything is Ishvara, everything is that Brahman, Parmeshwara. So at some point, Brahmaji must have asked Arshavidyalaya, have you got it? I am Sarvam. That Muni he is Sarvam. That's what he recognizes. So he tells Arshavidyalaya, Sa eva Sarvam. I can't keep on listing all the things that I am. That Muni is. Because everything is that Muni. Sa eva Sarvam. He is everything. There is nothing without the Sakshi. Because everything is Mithya. The Trilochanam, we also said the three eyes represent past, present, and future. Because within the time scale, that's all we know. Here Brahmaji says, Sa eva sarvam yad bhutam yad cha bhavyam. All that is past is I. All that is in the future is I. I simply said Sarvam, left it at that, but we don't explain. What about the present? There's a style of presenting this in presenting the present in this case by adding the chakara. Saeva sarvam, whatever is in the bhuta, yat bhutam, yat cha bhavyam, yat bhavyam cha. The chakara indicates the present. So having said Saha eva sarvam. He repeats what he said earlier. Yatva amunir gacchati bhuta yonim. Namasta sakshim tamasap parastat. What is the end result? Here he uses the word nyatva. There I said nyatva is also meaning is the same. Nyatva. Nyatva tam mrityumatyeti. Tam nyatva. Knowing this. Knowing hameva sarvam. He crosses mrityu. Mrityu is a very interesting concept. For us, mrityu is when something is born and something then dies at another point time t2. And you can't think of one single thing in this entire Jagat which is not subject to this. And he made that clear by saying, it may be a very long time, but it is still anitya. It is still within time. But this Munihi who understands his own position as Sarvam, he is not part of time. Time is part of that Brahman, that Muni. Our fear is because we say the body dies. We don't know what happens to the Sukshma Sharira. Every Sthula Sharira gets destroyed in time. A Ghata exists only during the pendency of the Ghata Swarupa. Before that, there was no Ghata. Afterward, there's only shards of clay. Before, there's only lump of clay. Only the form exists during the pendency of Ghata. Everything is there in the Bhagavad Gita. You can see the Samanvaya. Second chapter. What does Bhagavan say? Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata. Avyakta nidananeva tatra ka paridevi. These are only vyakta, avyakta. Yeah, within time. What is not within time is only you. Nyatva, tam nyatva munihi mrityum atyeti. There is no end because there is no beginning. Beginning and end are concepts of time and space. And time and space are also part of the Mithya Jagat. Therefore, Saha Amritaha. There is no death for that person. What is the death for? The physical body. Sharira dies. He has already detached himself from everything in the Jagat through knowledge. See, knowledge is only dispelling a wrong notion. When somebody sees a snake on the road, there is no snake. But fear is there. What causes that fear? The reaction to that snake, the fear, the disgust, whatever else he gets, is because of the notion of the snake only. There's no snake. When you switch on the light and you can see the rope clearly, that notion is gone. That notion is born of avidya. And that notion is born only in this kind of peculiar case. When it's absolutely clear, you can see the rope, there is no notion. When it's pitch dark, you can see nothing, there's no notion. You can imagine a lot of things, but there's really no notion. I am a mortal, I am limited, I am 5'7". All are notions. And every reaction to the notion is only notion. And that notion is born of ajnana. So this Brahmajnanam that Ashlana went seeking is that jnanam knowing which there is no reaction. So all notions are gone. There is no notion, there is no worry about what happens to life, what happens to life after death. See, we all know instinctively that when the body dies, it is not that I die. Every religion also tells you. But it is so confusing that they may turn around and say, no, you go to eternal heaven or eternal hell. But it's still within time. That last step, religion is not able to support in our thinking. He says, Yatva tam mrityumatyeti nanya pantha vimuktaye. You're free from what? Vimuktaye, for being freed. Freed from what? Freed from the false notions that we have generated based on ajnana. You say freed from birth and death. Why does birth and death come? Notion. All that notions come from avidya. And that avidya comes because I know I exist. And since I exist, I should be absolute. And everything that I can think of as I is contrary to that. Therefore, I exist and yet I don't know how I exist. My samanya jnanam is there, my existence. Samanya jnanam, that there is something lying on the floor is there. That vishesha jnanam, that is a piece of rope, is not there. And because that vishesha jnanam is not there, I have to superimpose something on it. And that becomes the basis of our entire thinking, basis of our life. How do you free yourself? To think that I'm bound is also a notion. I'm bound by time, I'm bound by space, I'm bound by various limitations. Is a notion. a notion born out of wrong identification with upadhi. When I can cognitively separate the upadhi from the real I recognize that all these birth, death, etc. belong to upadhi. Till then, the upadhi dharma is superimposed on I. All that is required is what Arshavidyalaya went to ask Brahmaji, tell me that Brahmajnanam, by which jnanam I can separate the upadhi from the real thing. And therefore recognize my true nature. That is mukti. If I am bound already, I can never be free. Or if I think I'm become free, I can be bound again. But if you're already free anyway, all you have to do is understand you're free. All you have to understand that various superimpositions you put on that as limitations to yourself are all only notions, all mithya. You remember the example we were talking about of a Devadatta you recognize or don't recognize from 20 years ago. All the upadhis have changed. Time has changed, place has changed. You used to know him sometime in the past, when you were perhaps going to college together. That time he was a sprightly young man, a lot of ideas, thick black hair. Today, none of the upadhis is true. And yet you recognize Devadatta. How do you recognize? You don't remove the upadhi. The fat man is still a fat man. You don't remove his fat. His bald head is still a bald head. You can't remove the bald head. You can't put hair back on that. You can these days do a computer programming. How would he look if I put a lot of hair on his head? Artificial intelligence comes. But what do you actually do? Cognitively, you separate the upadhi from Devadatta. When you separate the correct understanding of I from the upadhi, which cannot be done, it's not a physical activity. It is only a manas activity. When I recognize the real I and the superimposition of the upadhis, jnanam arises. Then all the attributes of the upadhi, all the limitations of the upadhi, birth, death, old age, diseases, sukha, dukkha, everything becomes that the I is not attached to any of those. When I recognize I as the adhisthana for everything. I recognize the rope as rope, no snake is there. And therefore, no reactions. So, such a person, he says, vimuktaye nanya pantha. There is no other way. How can there be another way? You are already vimukta, but you've superimposed all these attributes on yourself and all the limitations you put on yourself and saying, I'm limited, I'm born, I die, I have a limited life, I have this, I have that. If it is really true, you can't remove it. If it were really true, they will remain. Or even if you try very hard to remove it, it will come back. It is like our friends and hippies of the 60s who go to Rishikesh for gaining moksha. You know their concept of moksha. Charas was growing freely in that area. Ganja and charas. So they say, oh, I was free for 1 hour. That is not mukti. This mukti, nanya pantha, Purusha Suktam says, nanya pantha ayanaya vidyate. To know this, the truth of yourself, you only have to know. No other way. No other way. You cannot say, no, I'm going to do bhakti and I'm going to understand. You can't understand. Bhakti you have to have. We've seen that why bhakti becomes important. Everything else I do is only preparation. I'm a karma yogi, I'm a bhakta yogi, I'm a hatha yogi, I'm this yogi, that yogi. Only preparation at best. So when so many of these gurus with lakhs of followers, the best they can hope for in this lifetime or in further lifetimes, to get into a state of inquiry, because those gurus have helped them bring their mind to a state of tranquility. If not an absolute state of tranquility, at least bring their disturbances down. So out of the lakhs and lakhs of those people, a few will start inquiring. Ultimately, there is no other way of finding out. And therefore, no other way for mukti or moksha. And what does he recognize? Sarva bhutasthamaatmanam, sarva bhutani chatmani, ikshate yatati, ikshate, another, ikshate. What is that? Bhagavad Gita?
Yoga yuktana.
Ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshana.
Sarvatra samadarshana. Yes, taken from here only. First line. Sarvabhutasthamaatmanam sarvabhutani chatmani. Sampashyan brahma paramam yati nanyena hetuna. No other cause. One has taken the same thing. He who understands, he who sees this oneness, is the same thing. We will go into the details in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Namaha. Hari Om.